She thought she was invisible to him, just another assistant buried under files and deadlines. But fate had other plans, and the man she worked for would one day gamble everything he had, just to keep her safe. The city was alive with its usual chaos, skyscrapers glittering like cold jewels under the night sky. Amelia sat quietly at her desk on the 35th floor, the hum of the office now fading into silence as everyone else had gone home. She was Mr. Adrian Blackwood's assistant, an enigmatic billionaire with a reputation for being ruthless in boardrooms and untouchable in matters of the heart. To her, he was a storm she was forced to live in, commanding yet distant, and her job was to survive within it. For 2 years she had been by his side, booking flights, organizing meetings, managing scandals before they touched him. She knew the taste of his coffee, the tone of his silence, even the way he tapped his pen when something troubled him. But she also knew she didn't matter. She was just an assistant, easily replaceable, her name insignificant compared to his towering legacy. And yet tonight felt different. He had called her into his office long after hours. The man who never wasted words was standing by the glass window, looking out at the dark horizon, as if searching for something beyond it. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, tie undone, an image Amelia wasn't used to seeing. He looked human, not the ruthless figure who owned half the city. "Amelia," he said at last, his voice low, carrying weight she couldn't decipher. "Do you ever wonder if all of this is worth it?" She blinked, caught off guard. He never asked personal questions. He never even spoke unless it was about work. "All of this, sir?" she asked carefully. He turned, and for the first time in years, she saw something in his eyes that wasn't cold steel. It was exhaustion, loneliness, maybe even pain. "Yes, the power, the money, the walls I've built." Her heart ached unexpectedly. She wanted to answer, but how could she, when she wasn't part of his world, just a shadow moving behind him? Still, she whispered, "I think sometimes the things we build to protect ourselves are the same things that keep us from living." For a moment, silence hung heavy. And then, to her astonishment, Adrian gave the faintest smile, fragile, almost broken. That night, Amelia left the office with her thoughts racing. She had seen a side of him no one else had. She didn't know then that this small crack in his armor was only the beginning, that soon her life would collide with his in a way that would test loyalty, fear, and love itself. Because Adrian Blackwood, the man she thought untouchable, would one day risk everything for her. She thought her boss only saw her as a name on a paycheck, but when danger entered her life, Adrian's mask of indifference shattered. Suddenly, she wasn't just his assistant. She was the one person he couldn't afford to lose. The next morning, Amelia arrived at the office earlier than usual, still haunted by last night's conversation. She half expected Adrian to act differently, maybe even acknowledge the strange vulnerability he had shown. But when she entered his office, he was back to being the same man everyone feared, composed, sharp, unreadable. Papers were spread across his desk, his suit immaculate, his eyes cold. "Coffee," he said, without looking up. For a moment, her heart sank. Had she imagined everything? Had she mistaken exhaustion for vulnerability? Shaking it off, Amelia nodded, retreating quickly to fetch his order. She reminded herself that she was here to work, not to dream. But fate had other plans. That afternoon, when Adrian's calendar was packed with back-to-back meetings, Amelia noticed something odd. An envelope had been slipped under her desk drawer and marked, "No return address." Frowning, she opened it discreetly. Inside was a single piece of paper with words written in bold, messy letters. "Stay away from Adrian Blackwood, or you'll regret it." Her blood turned cold. She glanced around, but no one seemed to notice her reaction. The office buzzed with normalcy, yet her chest tightened with fear. Why would anyone threaten her? She was just an assistant, invisible, replaceable. Trying to calm her nerves, Amelia tucked the note into her bag. Maybe it was a prank. Maybe she was overthinking, but her instincts whispered otherwise. Later that evening, when Adrian left for a dinner meeting, Amelia stayed behind to clear up. She couldn't shake off the unease. Every shadow in the office seemed heavier, every sound sharper. By the time she stepped out into the parking garage, her hands were trembling. That's when she felt a presence. Someone was following her. Her footsteps quickened, echoing against the concrete. She clutched her bag, heart pounding, until a figure emerged from the shadows. A tall man in a dark hoodie, his face obscured. "You shouldn't be here," he growled. Before Amelia could scream, headlights flooded the garage. A sleek black car screeched to a halt, and Adrian stepped out. His expression was sharper than a blade, his presence filling the space with authority and danger. "Get away from her," he commanded, his voice thunderous. The hooded man froze, then bolted into the shadows. Adrian didn't chase him. Instead, he rushed to Amelia's side, his hand gripping her arm firmly but not harshly. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, her lips trembling. I think someone's watching me." They left a note. His jaw tightened, eyes darkening with a fury she had never seen before. "You should have told me." Tears stung her eyes. "I didn't want to bother you. I'm just your assistant. Don't ever say that again." His voice broke like fire in the silence. He held her gaze, and for the first time, Amelia realized something terrifying and beautiful: she mattered to him. More than she should. That night, Adrian made a promise. "From now on, you're not walking home alone. You're not stepping out without security. Whoever is behind this will have to go through me first." And Amelia knew, deep down, that her life was no longer her own. She told herself she was just his employee. But every time Adrian looked at her with that fierce protectiveness, Amelia felt her walls breaking. What was more dangerous, the threats outside or the feelings growing inside her heart? The next morning, Adrian sent a car for Amelia. No arguments, no excuses. When she stepped into the glossy black vehicle, she realized this wasn't a simple ride to work. It was a silent declaration. She wasn't just another assistant anymore. She was someone Adrian was willing to protect at any cost. Inside the office, rumors spread quickly. Employees whispered about why they're usually detached. Boss suddenly seemed more attentive to Amelia walking beside her, adjusting her schedule, even canceling meetings just to keep her close. Amelia tried to ignore the stares, but her cheeks burned every time his hand brushed hers when passing papers, or when his gaze lingered a second too long. What danger wasn't far behind. By the third day, Adrian's head of security reported something chilling. Amelia had been followed again, this time near her apartment. Whoever was targeting her wasn't backing down. "Pack your things," Adrian said one evening, his tone final. "You're not staying there another night?" Amelia froze. "What do you mean? We'll stay at my place." Her heart skipped. "Adrian, I can't. People will talk." "Let them." His jaw clenched, his voice dropping low. "Your safety comes before gossip." Reluctantly, she agreed. That night, when his driver pulled up to the towering glass building, Adrian called home. Amelia felt like she had stepped into another world. The penthouse was breathtaking, floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city skyline. Marble floors that gleamed under soft lights, and silence so heavy it felt like it belonged to him alone. Adrian walked her through the space. "This will be your room." But Amelia couldn't help but notice the details: the library stacked with books, the faint scent of cedar, the untouched grand piano by the window. For a man so powerful, his home felt lonely. Later, as she stood by the balcony, staring at the city lights, Adrian joined her. His sleeves were rolled up, his tie loosened, his usual armor of control slipping away. "You shouldn't have to live like this," Amelia whispered, "afraid just because of me." His eyes softened, but his words were firm. "Amelia, you don't understand. This isn't just about threats. Whoever is after you is after me. They know you matter to me." Her breath caught. "Do I?" For a long moment, silence hung between them, heavy with the weight of unspoken truths. Then Adrian stepped closer, his hand brushing against hers, the contact sparking something undeniable. "Yes," he said finally, voice low and raw. "More than I ever intended." Amelia's heart raced, her emotions colliding with fear, confusion, and a longing she couldn't suppress. She knew this was crossing a line. But when Adrian's hand lingered over hers, she didn't pull away. That night, as she lay awake in the guest room, Amelia couldn't forget his words. "You matter to me." And for the first time, she wondered if the danger she was in wasn't just from whoever was stalking her, but from the way she was falling for her boss. He told himself he could control his feelings. But when she was near, Adrian's world of rules and walls began to collapse. What if protecting Amelia meant losing the only shield he ever had, his heart? The days inside Adrian's penthouse blurred into something Amelia had never imagined. Mornings began with the aroma of coffee drifting through the quiet space, sometimes brought to her by Adrian himself instead of staff. Afternoons were filled with soft conversations in the library, where she discovered he loved history and poetry, two things that didn't fit the ruthless billionaire image he wore at work. Nights were the hardest, when silence wrapped around them, broken only by the sound of the city far below. Amelia tried to remind herself, "He's my boss, nothing more." But every time Adrian's hand brushed hers while passing a book, or when his deep voice softened as he asked about her childhood, something inside her trembled. One evening, the storm outside rattled the windows. Lightning flashed across the sky, and Amelia found herself standing by the piano. She traced her fingers lightly over the keys. "You play?" God. Adrian's voice came from behind her, calm but curious. She startled. "Not really. My mother used to teach me, but I stopped after she passed away." Adrian walked closer, his gaze unreadable. Then, to her surprise, he sat beside her on the bench. "Play something." For her. Her fingers trembled, but she pressed the keys. A soft melody filled the air, fragile, broken at times, but alive. When she finished, Adrian didn't speak right away. Instead, he reached over and gently covered her hands with his own. "You bring life into this place," he whispered, almost to himself. The closeness was unbearable. Amelia could feel his warmth, his breath brushing against her cheek. And then, before she could think, Adrian tilted her face toward him. Their lips hovered just an inch apart, but then he pulled away. His jaw tightened, and he stood abruptly. "This isn't right," he muttered, pacing to the window. Amelia's heart sank. Shame burned through her. "I'm sorry. Shouldn't have stopped." Adrian cut in, his voice low, almost broken. "You don't understand. You're not just anyone, Amelia. You make me forget everything I've built. The walls, the control. If I let this happen, I'll lose myself." Her chest ached at his words. "Maybe losing yourself isn't the worst thing." Adrian turned, his eyes dark with conflict. For a long moment, he said nothing. But his silence spoke louder than words. It was the silence of a man fighting a war inside himself. That night, Amelia lay in bed, unable to sleep. She could still feel his touch on her hands, still hear the rawness in his voice. She knew Adrian was dangerous not because of his enemies, but because every moment with him was pulling her deeper into a love she couldn't resist. And somewhere in the shadows of the city, the man following her watched, waiting, planning his next move. He swore he would never love. But when danger closed in, Adrian was forced to choose his empire or the woman who had already stolen his heart. The shadow that had been haunting Amelia finally made its move. Late one night, as she stepped onto the balcony for fresh air, she caught sight of a figure below. A man watching. His presence was cold, deliberate, and Amelia felt her stomach twist with dread. She rushed back inside, locking the glass door. Adrian found her pale, trembling, gripping the railing of the balcony. He didn't ask questions. He simply wrapped his arms around her and pulled her close, holding her as though the world was on fire outside. "You're safe here," he whispered, though his eyes betrayed the storm raging inside him. For the next days, Adrian doubled the security, but it wasn't just about safety anymore. He began staying close, walking Amelia through the library, sharing meals at the long table that once felt empty, but now came alive with laughter. His walls were crumbling, brick by brick, every time Amelia smiled at him. One evening, after hours of silence broken only by the crackling fireplace, Adrian finally spoke the truth he'd buried for so long. "Told myself I'd never love again," he admitted, his voice rough, haunted. "Love makes you weak, vulnerable. I built everything I have because I swore no one would ever control me again." Amelia's chest tightened, and now, she asked softly. His eyes met hers, burning with something unspoken. "Now, I don't care if it makes me weak, because when I look at you, Amelia, the empire, the power, it means nothing." Her breath caught. Every wall she had built to protect her heart collapsed in that single moment. She whispered, then stopped fighting it. He stepped closer, his hand cupping her face. This time he didn't stop. His lips captured hers in a kiss that was fierce, desperate, and filled with years of buried longing. Amelia melted against him, her hands clutching his shirt, as if she never wanted to let go. The kiss deepened, flames igniting between them, unstoppable. When they finally broke apart, breathless, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. "You're mine, Amelia, and I swear, I'll protect you even if it costs me everything." Neither of them noticed that far beyond the glass windows, a pair of eyes still watched. The danger wasn't gone. It was waiting, sharpening its knife in the dark. But for the first time, Amelia wasn't afraid, because now she wasn't facing it alone. The empire was built on power, but in the end, Adrian was ready to burn it all for her. The attack came without warning. A stormy night cloaked the city, lightning tearing across the sky as Amelia walked through the dim halls of the mansion. Suddenly, glass shattered in the west wing. The alarm screamed, and within seconds, armed men stormed inside. Amelia froze in terror. But before she could scream, Adrian was there, his hand gripping hers, his voice sharp, commanding, "Stay behind me." The mansion erupted into chaos. Adrian's guards clashed with the intruders, but these weren't ordinary thieves. They came for one reason: Amelia. Adrian fought like a man possessed, no longer the untouchable billionaire, but a desperate man willing to sacrifice everything. Amelia's heart raced as she watched him. Every punch, every strike, every roar was not for his empire. It was for her. At one point, one of the intruders broke through the line, lunging straight at Amelia. She screamed, but before the blade touched her, Adrian threw himself in front. The knife cut into his arm. Blood spilled. "Adrian," she cried, clutching him as he winced. But even injured, he stood tall, pulling Amelia behind him again. His eyes burned with fire. "You'll never touch her." The fight dragged on until sirens wailed in the distance. The intruders, realizing they'd lost their chance, fled into the storm. The mansion fell silent, broken glass glittering like fallen stars across the floor. "Ah!" Amelia sank to her knees beside Adrian, pressing her trembling hands against his wound. Tears blurred her vision. "Why would you do this? You could have died." He tilted her chin up even as pain tightened his jaw. "Because without you, Amelia, this means nothing." His voice broke, raw and unguarded. "You're not just my assistant. You're the only reason my heart beats." Amelia's tears fell freely now. She leaned down, kissing him soft at first, then desperate, pouring every ounce of love she had into that moment. When she pulled away, she whispered fiercely, "Then you'll never face life alone again. Not as my boss, not as my savior, but as the man I love." In the weeks that followed, Adrian's empire began to change. The heartless businessman the world once feared was gone. In his place stood a man who smiled when Amelia walked into a room, who no longer measured his worth in money but in love. Their journey hadn't been easy. It had been carved through pain, sacrifice, and danger. But sometimes, the greatest love stories were born in the unlikeliest of places. It's between a billionaire who had forgotten how to feel and the woman who taught him that love was worth every risk. And so, the assistant who was once invisible became the center of his universe. The man who had once risked everything for power had now risked it all for her, because in the end, love was the only empire that truly mattered.